She-Wolves of Winter. How is everybody doing? You, AU, and everybody in the chat. Hopefully we'll see some more people in a bit. Tonight we're going to talk about the Gardner Kings and some more descendants of Garth Greenhand and the Reach. So I'll just read who the are and just kind of how they descended from Garth Greenhand, who God last time, the last stream we did. He's the patriarchal god, mythical god, really, of the Reach. And the children of Garth Greenhand became the Gardner Kings. So there's a lot of kings here. There's quite a few, but there's a few really special ones, a few odd ones. There's the three sage kings of the Gardner Kings. They have the oaken seat, which has been destroyed now, which is a weirwood, well, an oak throne, which Garth Greenhand was said to have built, that, or have planted, and which was destroyed during the Dance of Dragons, I believe. It was, I'm not quite sure, actually. I have to check that. But first, I just wanted to say that I'm sorry, you guys. I've got so many notes. It's crazy. Anyway, it's basically the color green, the Reach, agriculture, the rivers that are next to the arbor, the honey wine, and the houses that have come out of it, such as Hightower, really interesting houses we've never even heard of. For this page to pull up. So House Gardner is an extinct house that, I'm sorry, House Gardner of High Garden is the extinct house famed king, beginning with King Garth the Gardner. The Gardner's rule nation with the Andal and down the generations until the last Gardner king, Marin, and his kin were killed at the field of fire in the War of Conquest in Aegon. There were many Gardner kings sat upon a living throne called the Oaken Seat that grew from an oak that the mythical Garth Greenhand himself. The kings of House Gardner wore crowns of vines and flowers when at peace, and crowns of bronze thorn iron when they rode to war. Their blazon was a green hand over a white field, which inspired the chivalric order of the Green Hand. So just really quickly, I want to say that I think it's interesting that they wore crowns of vines and flowers when at peace, but when they were in war, they wore crowns of bronze thorns, later iron, which think of the crown of winter. It's iron spikes. So I'll let one of you ladies jump in if you'd like from there. Uh-oh, it looks like we just lost Steffie again.
We lost her again. She'll be back. I guess that's me then. I counted 28, I believe, Gardner Kings. Is that kind of what you got?
About right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Around there.
So we got them. We did good then.
Yeah.
After Garth Greenhand, that's when you get the line. His children and all begin the lineage of House Gardner. But there's no precise lineage or chronology of House Gardner. Beginning of it was Garth Greenhand. He ruled and until Mern the Ninth and the Aegon's conquest. The first one that I have is Garth the Third, Gardner. He's called Garth the Great, King of the Reach and head of House Gardner. He extended the borders of the Reach northward, winning Old Oak, Red Lake, and Golden Grove with pacts of friendship and mutual defense. In the annals of history, the name of Garth the Third is writ large. That's all that they really have on Garth the Third. Garth, go ahead, hon.
Yeah, it's true. And there's Garth the Third. Let's see, Garth the Third was I think that's about what I had on Garth the Third. There are so many. There we go. Garth the Third was all. Yeah, that's all I had on him.
I'll jump in.
Steffie.
Hi, sorry, I'm back.
That's okay.
When it came to Garth the Third, I didn't understand why he would need House Oakhart, House Crane, and House Rowan, who are basically siblings of Garth Greenhand. Like, it didn't make sense to me. If you knew that, if like the original Garth Gardner was the eldest, you wouldn't need to vie for a kingdom. You know what I mean? Like, why would you challenge the eldest? Like, right. It doesn't make sense to me, especially when it's so new. Like, there's not many that I believe are in between Garth the Gardner, right, the first one, and then Garth the Third. So it's just weird to me. Like, the timelines, like, it doesn't make sense when you look at the tale. There's not many that I believe are in between Garth.
Sorry about that.
What I found though was on Garth the Third, maybe the first and second died young before they took the throne, or there was an actual kingdom, because you got Garth running around impregnating everybody, the old man, you know, and then he's got kids everywhere, and then all of a sudden you got one of them, Garth the Third, who wants to create the kingdom. I think there was just everybody must have had their own land, and that was that, and evidently there was some need for cohesion in the kingdom.
Yeah, I see this as a southern version of the North. Like it's another first king figure in the South. So it's almost like it's the fertility symbol, the green men symbol, the spring, the color green, flowers, vines, worn as crowns. And, you know, kind of seems like France to me, and a whole lot of chivalry came out of the Reach, like we talked about last time. So I think the Gardners, it seemed like they were, the time that they were ruling was peaceful, a lot of them. Anyway, some of them weren't, but most of them seemed to be peacekeepers. And it seems like it was Gawain the Fifth who was the first Gardner king born into the faith of the Seven. So they were also believers in the old gods before, seems like right until about the Three Sage Kings time.
Yeah. When the Andals came is when they didn't fight, they joined.
Right. Yeah, and it looks like that, you know, when all this was going on is when the Andals came in. These were the the kings in the Reach when the Andals came.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but you got a bunch of them before the Andals come.
Yeah, that's what I meant, is that they were kings before the Andals came, and then when the Andals came, they some of them, and then the other ones, like you just said, fought them.
It's kind of like in the North, the 100 kingdoms of Westeros, you know, that this was part of all that. Maybe there was a bunch of them up north. They're all over, So Garth really spread his seed around, put it that way.
Yeah, that little seed, the seed is strong, and that little bag of seeds that Garth Greenhand carried have more of a meaning than just planting crops and trees.
Yeah.
It's strong with the Gardner Kings. Jump in for a minute, or do you want me to keep going?
I'll keep going. The
Okay.
only, again, I don't believe the timeline, at all. So there was, particularly one person who I thought should have been, between the first Garth and the third Garth, and that, to me, is John the Second, and he's called the Tall. And this is my problem with Garth's kids. John the Oak, he was the son of Garth Greenhand, and he was a giantess, right? He was huge, right? Like 8 to 12 feet tall or whatever. And he brought chivalry and all that stuff to Westeros. So, and then you have Gwaine the First Gardner, right? He was called the Gallant. So it's almost like this. If these are first or second names, you would put them at the beginning of the line, where they're not. They're right before right during the Andal's time. Hold on, let me look that up for a second quickly, because I have it written down, the exact timeline.
They are. I think you're right.
I think you got Garth the Fifth, but after the Garth the Second, before you get to Gwaine the First, according to what it's showing.
Yeah,
What I got.
Yeah, they're during the
kind
Andal Kings, which is so weird to me. Why would they be at the arrival of the Andals? Or because if numerology is an important thing, right? Then you're talking about these firsts and seconds were at the beginning, not later on in the story. Why would you all of a sudden name your kid Gwaine or John when it hasn't been in your family history for so long? It doesn't make sense to me, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it goes against most of the things that we see now. And it's interesting because I wonder when that changed. I wonder why it changed. And maybe it's just because it's so confusing to keep track of that it didn't work. I don't know. But I mean, we've got for the Three Sage Kings, well, I mean, there's King, let's see, the Three Sage Kings
We've got 14 men, 14 kings before you get to Mern, the Madling even. And then King Mern and the Three Sage Kings. King Garth the Ninth Gardner was the first of the Three Sage King, and he was number 16th on my list. So he's 16th out of 28 or so. Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few, and I don't really know why. Besides keeping them straight, they're Sage Kings, except for the fact that they were wise, cunning kings of the Reach from House Gardner, followed one another on the Oaken seat. That was all I could find that at least gave these Three Sage Kings a reason for their lineage, for their succession. So theirs was from Garth the Ninth Gardner, his son Merle the First. This is what you're talking about, Steffie. It's very strange. Why wouldn't he name his son Garth? I don't know. But he named him Merle, so that was Merle the First. And then his grandson was Gwaine the Fifth Gardner. Those are the Three Sage Kings. And it seems like another trio sort of idea, of an old, it reminds me of the three wise men kind of, but of the South. So it has nothing to do with really following a star or a god or something like that. It just has to do with I think, representing the Reach and trying to keep control and of, this was it was a very peaceful time with them. So they seem to have followed one another on the Oaken Seat, dealt with Andal invasion from the Reach long after that was the cool thing, that it was long after the fall of the Vale, the Riverlands, and the Stormlands. So we watched all of those 3 regions fall to the Andals, prep all that time of how to deal with them and see how they fought, etc., etc. So
Yeah,
it's
and I
interesting.
think that I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. I was just saying that the reason I think that they're considered sage and supposedly 3 wise men that you say is because these 3 kings in succession, all during the time of the Andal invasion, they made common cause with them. They even gave some of their higher ranking Andals lands and knighthoods and made them retainers and all that kind of stuff. They took their wives, and instead of them being dominated by the Andals, they still maintained their identity, and it seems like the Andals had to assimilate more into them the other way around in some ways. That's all.
I'll jump in for a second. Okay, so when it came to we've skipped like a bunch of kings, but like this is pretty interesting. This is one of the areas like I really enjoyed. Okay, I found it very weird that it was 3 sage kings, because in Highgarden their werewoods consist of 3 werewoods and they're all entwined. So again, you have this almost like a mockery of the religion when the Andals came, right? Like of the old gods. So I wonder if that took some place into it. And as for I'm just gonna read the quote quickly here. This is for hold on, let me scroll up a little bit. Actually, I'll wait for that. Okay, that's it. It's just it's weird that it was made a mockery of, almost, with the 3. So you wonder if the trees, like the werewolf trees, also ended up to be in an order, like it didn't happen all at once, kind of thing too. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. See that, because it's a strange way to not only to explain it but to record it. It seems like in history, from a history point of view. So what I've got for the beginning, for the first kind of kings that there were, is that I just read about House Highgarden. The Gardner kings, let's see, they had claimed descent from the High King of the First Men, Garth Greenhand, which I already said. They initially ruled the Reach proper, which is kind of cool that they did do that, like you just said, with the religion, with the religious aspect of it, because they believed in the old gods. Garth the Ninth, actually, over again, he brought a sept into his court, making him one of his counselors also. And he built the first sept at Highgarden, although he continued to worship the old gods. So it's kind of cool that, just to appease the Andals, to kind of get along. They seem like, last time we were talking about Garth Greenhand and his descendants, it seemed like they all just kind of tried to get along a lot of the time instead of fight. So, and there was actually a quote about how and men hadn't seen a weapon for a century during the rule of one of these kings. I'm sure we'll get to him. But there was an interesting quote about Garth the Ninth that I just wanted to read. His quote is, "When a wolf descends upon your flocks, all you gain by killing him, but for the other wolves will come. If instead you feed the wolf and tame him and turn your guard dogs, they will protect when the pack comes ravening. So I liked that a lot. I thought that was really interesting. And let's see. So we've got, they did expand their territory further than the western marches between Horn Hill and Night Song, which were eventually added back into the Gardner King's domain. Old Oak, Red Lake, Golden Grove joined and packs of friendship and mutual defense. The Great. So he was called the Great, which is most likely because he formed all these pacts of friendship. And with no war, that's big.
Yeah.
Then there was Merrin III, who brought the arbor into the kingdom and made House Redwine his vassals after his cousin and the last king of the arbor was lost at sea. Not long after, King Garland II, the bridegroom, brought House Hightower of Oldtown into their domain, into the realm, by marrying his daughter to Lord Lyman Hightower and putting aside his own wives to marry Lyman's daughter. King Gawain III, the Fat, resolved between Lords Manderley and Peake and accepted fealty for lands without, and gave them lands without bloodshed. And then Steffie, like you said, John II the Tall received homage from lords and petty kings as he sailed his barge to the headwaters of the Mander. So John the Oak and John the Tall, I like them. They're interesting. And they seem to be sailors too. Probably have something to do with the Manderleys by now. Maybe they've intermarried or something. But I found it interesting that other legendary warrior kings from this time include Garth V, Hammer of the Dornish, which that was really interesting. His name is Hammer of the Dornish. So did he have something to do with the breaking of the arm?
I think he may have. He may have. I have him listed as the second king after Garth the third. Then you have Garth
that's what
the fifth. Now, I don't know what happened to the fourth. Then you go to Gawain the first, the gallant. Giles the first Gardner, who is called the Woe. And I wanted to mention him because he reportedly sold 3/4 of Oldtown's population into slavery, but he did fail to take the Hightower. Guy was a Gardner king who 3/4 of Oldtown just sold him out. And that, I think, goes back to a thought that possibly Oldtown or Garth Hightower in the Reach area, that in this area is where, where the Citadel, the Hightower, that area was originally inhabited by traders from Essos and all of, because, you got to have some trade for them to go into slavery. Then you got Merrin the third Gardner. He brought the arbor into the realm, and that's about all it says about him, Merrin the third.
Yeah, Merrin the third.
Then I got, and Garland the second Gardner. He's called the bridegroom. He brought Oldtown to the realm. He had a daughter who married Lord Lyman Hightower.
Yeah, that was the one who married the Hightower.
And that's how they got the Oldtown and the Hightowers into the realm of the Reach. They married into it, just like you were saying. They used diplomacy, marriage, and all of that to bring people in, like the Starks did in the North, I might add.
That was another big thing that seems like how the Starks have married most of the houses in the north. It seems like Gardner kings, the descendants of these Gardner kings have, and themselves have either started or married into, and in the realm. I'm sorry, I just clicked something and lost my train of thought. But they've married a lot of the South, and so it's kind of like the same thing as the North. There's one big family in the North, one big family in the South, and they actually might all be. So they might even be related to Starks through Manderleys, stuff like that. So it's interesting that in such a big realm, they are almost all related. I wonder what that means for this story, the fact that we keep finding all these people that are related, and which means that you have an.
I think we lost you.
Okay, I'll jump in if Ashley's until Ashley comes back. Okay, there's a whole lot of information, so okay, I'll start with Ashley's quote of Garth the Ninth. I'll just re-say the quote. When a wolf descends upon your flocks, all you gain by killing him is a short respite, for other wolves will come. If instead you feed the wolf and tame him and turn his pups into your guard dogs, they will protect the flock when the pack comes ravening. Now, when it comes to like Meryn the Third and seeking favors with a woods witch to raise armies of the dead, then the entire quote about wolves on top of that, and House Stark and how House Stark saved the Manderleys, like gave them sanctuary in the north, becomes like increasingly possible that maybe the Starks did tame Meryn III, right? Because you're talking about when you look at the wall and the hellhounds fighting, it could also symbolize Meryn the Third, right? Because you don't really know where his who his heir was, and if they accepted this ritual. And then on top of that, like the Andals theme involving this, that the others are like really out to avenge the Starks, right? Like kind of like how Garth the Ninth, and the Three Sages basically tamed the Andals to help them. They gave them sanctuary there, right? They gave them a foothold.
Yes.
Right? So if you were to tie this to the Starks in the north, right? Just let me read here. Okay, so Merrill the First, called the Meek, and Gwaine the Fifth continued to prove that this theory and expanded. Merrill the First, building of the first sept / ice werewood, like if you were going to go that far, converting to the old gods. So again, you're converting to the Andals, but instead you're converting to the old gods, like another sect of godhood, right? And marrying a Stark, this is pretty straightforward, right? Like marrying where the Gardners married an Andal instead. So you also have to look at the wall and the queen, like the Barrow Queen, the Corpse Queen, and then you have the Knights King, or the Knights, the little knights, and the Night's Watch, where they had to give up lands, honor, and women. Right? They supplied them with a different weapon, which would be the ice weapons, to if you were to go north. Again, Gwaine was born in the faith, and he took another to bride, basically, right? Like if you were to go match it up. And then you have the same quote by Gwaine as well. They gave us 7 gods, we gave them dirt and daughters, and our sons and grandsons shall be as brothers. That's matching basically what Ned says at the werewood tree that Bran sees of Robb and Jon being like brothers, where yet they are cousins. So
right,
it goes a lot back and forth where you could see the tie-ins, right, of how it panned out. But for me, I don't think the others are like another mystery in another valley across the world. For me, they had to originate from Westeros in order to have sanctuary, if that makes sense. Like, I'm pretty sure if Bravos were to have come and asked for, let's say, the Tully's help, they would be like, who the hell are you? Get the fuck out of here, right? So it had to be someone they would have known in that Westeros land. So that's just...
Well, what I gathered from listening to you and all of this, and what I've studied, is that when that Manderley problem was come about, where is that? The Fat? Yeah. Gawain the Third?
It twice, actually.
Yeah, he persuaded Lord... Yeah, but this was Gawain the Third. Now, this was in the time before the Andals came. So, yes, Manderley, and they, they did everything without bloodshed. So the Manderleys just must have up and left. And
they did.
This may have been, I don't know, because it appears in the books like Manderley haven't been in the North more than maybe a few hundred years. But in the histories, it looks possibly longer than that.
Yeah, that was interesting too. To me, is that see where it is. It's the John. Anyway, it's the. I can't find it right now, but yeah. And then there was the second one who dealt with it again. The feud with the Peaks and Manderleys. So the Manderleys moved to the White Knife, and wasn't that given to them, or at least to them as vassals?
Yes, it was given to them. Yeah, that it was Starks. And what I'm wanting to get back to with that is what you were talking about. They wouldn't have allowed just anybody to move up there unless there was a relation or a knowledge of the people of the South and all that. It's back to what Steffie had said in one of our previous ones, whereby, Bran the Builder in and of himself is a descendant of Garth Greenhand, and how these people made their way to the North and became these other houses in the same token.
Right.
I'd like to jump in on that for a second. Okay, so when it comes to like Gawain the Third, the Fat one, again, there's a problem with the descendants, because you're talking about the Peaks are supposedly an offspring of Floris the Fox, who's the daughter of Garth Greenhand. So it almost seems like there is favoritism, like heavy favoritism in the South. Like, if you're not a part of this clan, you better watch out. Like, you're talking about the Hightowers, they got raided, despite like even Maris the Maid being a part of the, like, descending through the Hightower line. So it brings to question how truly powerful the Manderleys were in their claim for whatever. Like, if the Manderleys do have some sort of ambition, does it also involve the South more than it would the North? Like, is it a Southern ambition instead of a Northern one? Because, like, for me, if you're going to drive someone out of your land, that means that, like, the reason that they were driven out is because they had the claim. Instead, they chose, like, a second cousin. Hold on, let me see.
Second cousin.
Yeah, it was a second cousin.
Yeah, it was. I'm blanking on the name.
Yeah, it was Perseon the Third Gardner. So he was the second cousin. So it seems to me that the Manderleys have a bigger stake. And if the Starks know it or not, then that would be a reason to invade and to have those boats. Again, with the issue with the Mander and it being basically led to Highgarden through the Mander, right? So, yeah, it's history repeating itself, where they do have a claim, and no one's going to take them seriously, so they got to do something about it.
But I don't
Yeah,
think that the Manderleys got run out of the South until Mern the sixth Gardner. And when you're talking about when they put the a second cousin of Garth, the 10th Gardner, the 6th on, and that is the war, because the Peaks and the Manderleys, they warred something terrible. The whole South in war, coming and going, because one was married to a Gardner, one of the Peaks was married to a Gardner, one of the Manderleys, and both had the right, and they meant that one of them wife's family was going to sit on the throne. And that's why I think he got plumb disgusted with all of it. And the second cousin came in because of the way that the Peaks and the Manderleys behaved. That's why he was made the king. Manderleys had to leave, I think, at that time.
mm-hmm.
But this isn't the
Maybe
first time that the Manderleys and the Peaks have had issues.
right.
No.
So clearly this extends further beyond them having power, right? It extends way back into the Age of Heroes, right?
Exactly.
So,
yes.
I forget who it was.
Yes.
So.
And that goes right back to what we said at the beginning, Steffi, how that some of these Garths are missing, some of these other ones are missing. Well, something happened to them, and there had to have been some type of the Hightowers, you've got the Gardners, you've got the Red Wines, you've got all these, and they very well are related, even if they came with it, as the first men over. More than one family had to have come besides Gardners or Garth Greenhand. So those are the people that we're talking about in here, because all of this is before the Andals.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that maybe what it might be is, I mean, because even the kings that didn't do much or aren't loved, they still are recorded.
Yeah.
The Field of Fire, Dance of Dragons happened, the Battle of the Three Armies.
Yeah.
And one more battle. So, and the Ironborn were constantly reaving.
Constantly.
Also, the Dornish were always warring with them a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. So maybe they were lost in war. I don't know. It seems like it does really skip around. There's a third missing here, a fourth missing there. So it's really strange. You don't see that. So I wonder if there's they're trying to also Andals, so they can write and record things. Maybe they're saying, we kept peace for so long, 75 years with Garth the Ninth. So maybe they're trying to kind of skew history a little bit to say, this is how long we kept peace, and then just leave out the kings who kind of didn't.
Yeah, I can see that, because when you're looking at Garth the Ninth, you're talking about Garth the Seventh. His reign was called the Golden Reign. So because of how much peace, he went to war for 10 years. He was one of the youngest kings, right, out of the Gardner line, and the rest of it, they were just peaceful, like, people. So yeah, I can see how the Andals might have tried to manipulate them into thinking that no, it wasn't peaceful, we brought peace, but yet it's the complete opposite, where as soon as the Andals came, they were constantly at war again. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like I started to think when I was looking at all of these names, like the Meek, the whatever. I was thinking about Sam being called the Slayer. And a lot of people are called things that are the opposite of what they are. Like, a lot of people have names that kind of make fun of them instead of actually represent something that they did. And so just be the opposite of actually what happened. Like Merle the First is the meek, and it's because I don't know why he's called the meek, but he converted to the faith and helped fund the construction of more septs and septries and mother houses all over the Reach. So these are old god worshippers. Maybe he's the meek because he just sort of gave in to the faith. And they didn't seem to be too fond of the faith, although they knew, just like with all the wars, that they just would rather make peace and build septs than go to war.
Well, I got like the Grimm, you know, you got Gareth II Gardner, the Grimm, and he's called that because he was slain in a battle by Harlaw, High King of the Iron Islands. He was slain beneath the walls of Oldtown. One called Morning Star, even Garth the sixth was Morning Star. He died in battle also against the Ironborn. So, you know, a lot of these couldn't have served very long. You got Giles the Second Gardner. This guy was tortured and then cut into small pieces to bait his Ironborn captors' hooks.
Yeah,
he was a king of the Reach. Yeah, he was head of House Gardner. He was taken captive in a naval battle near the Misty Islands and tortured to death by Joran the First Blacktide, an Ironborn High King of Iron Island. And Giles' corpse was then cut in small pieces to bait his captors' fish hooks with a chunk of king. Got 12, you got King Gordon the First Gardner, Grey Eyes. Now that is kind of reminiscent of the Grey Eyes of Starks, but he's just called Grey Eyes, and that's all they say about him. Evidently not much happened.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in there for a second, quickly. Okay, so you're talking about who are you talking about? Oh man, there's so many flipping
Grey Eyes.
No, the one
Grey
before
Eyes.
that. The one before that.
The one who was tortured, Giles the Second Gardner.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So if you look at the history, the discrepancies are here. Like it's so straightforward because you're talking about, okay, Garth III wanted to get House Oakhart and like all the other ones, like all the other siblings, 3 of them, right? So it would make sense because they're all along the northern border. For me, if you're gonna attack from, okay, so the Iron Islands is like right here. If you're gonna attack, I don't understand why the Iron Islands would attack Oldtown and the Arbor before they would attack like John the Oak's house, the Oaken Shield. So clearly this was a strategy to get all those islands. So for me, they knew that battle was coming, that this thing was coming, right? And then you also have the Lannisters were also like part of that in a way, because you're talking about Rowan of the Gold Tree, right? And if this could be somehow like related to it in essence, right? And why there was such an issue of those 3 battles, because they had to go further and further north in order to protect themselves from the Ironborn, which were further north. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. The Grey Eyes thing really interested me too, because it's a Stark trait, but it's also an Ironborn trait. So I wonder if they related, you know, as battles went on, even though they would, but maybe that's why nothing else is written about him, is because he might have ended up in the Iron Islands. I don't know. But the one that I think is kind of, it's interesting because it goes, you know, Garth the Fifth, Hammer of the Dornish, Gawain the First, the Gallant. That's just screams Gawain and the Green Knight, like Arthurian stuff about the Green Men and the Isle of Faces and the first night. And interestingly enough, the first night, there's a first night down here too, who was Gawain the Fifth. And into the faith, he was the first Gardner king born into the faith. And he was also the first to be knighted, like you said, Nan.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the first knight. So, like, you have the first knight and the first king in different realms. So that's Gawain, and I think that's interesting that he brought the chivalry and the knighthood, and so did John, but he did because that really ties into Jon Snow again, and since we're down by the Red Mountains of Dorne and the Tower of Joy and all that, we're kind of getting into where may have passed through, you know, all
But
that
we
kind of
have
stuff.
after that, yeah. After that, we have, this is one I wanted to bring to your attention because it's kind of relevant in today's time where you have King Garth the Seventh Gardner. He was called the Golden Hand or Garth Golden Hand. And now that could be something what Jamie is called. He may be called, instead of Kingslayer, Golden Hand one day. But it also reminded me of 007.
Yeah, it did.
But he
They also, yeah, they have a cool.
Yeah, doesn't it? And he had a daughter that married into House. He was the heir of House Lannister, and is another Golden Hand tie with Janie possibly, and a daughter also married the heir of House Durandon, and a grandson as his successor.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it just goes on. And then next is the one that Steffie was talking about. The 14 is King Gawain the ninth, I believe, or fourth. God fearing. Now you're. Fourth. Okay. He is called God fearing. Okay. Now he is called God fearing, who sought out the children of the forest to repel the Andal invaders. And you were talking about it being the opposite. In today's framework, for him to have gone to the children of the forest and even to suggest this would not have been very God-fearing by the law of the seven. But here, generations before the Andals arrived in the Reach, he sent out warriors in search for the children of the forest in hope that their green seers and magic could halt the invaders. And this was before arrived in the Reach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to really quick go back to Garth the Fourth, because I think maybe why that is because he was the one that built the first sept at Highgarden, even though he did worship the old gods. So he was appeasing both, and maybe he went to the children to try and figure out how to appease everyone. I mean, they have their sigil is the green hand, and it's not only green; it's like the Hamsara hand, that means warding off evil and prosperity. Green means fertility. It's all about fertility, spring, renewal, all that kind of stuff down here. And quickly, I wanted to say too, I think it's really interesting that Garth the Seventh, who was called the Golden Hand, his reign was called the Golden Reign, and he was the greatest of the Gardners, and for his deeds both in war and peace. This is the second time they've said both in war and peace having to do with the Gardner kings, and that says a lot to me about history and which goes into another kind of bastard sort of thought of maybe one of these kings may play into flipping sigils. Green on white will become white on green, kind of like House Targaryen or House Blackfire just switched, from black to green, or from
Yeah.
green to red. I'm sorry, black to red. So also he ruled for 81 years. Those are the peaceful years, and he actually did go to war with the King of the Rock and the Storm King, defeating both. And the King of the Rock, Casterly Rock, also almost looks like a 007 kind of a setup, where there's it just looks enormous, and all these tunnels and caves and hiding places and stuff like that. So it does have a little bit of an Ian Fleming thing to it. Kind of cool. Also, he was the one who defeated an invasion, but you said that already, by the Dornishmen. It was led by King Ferris Fowler, and he Ironborn from the Shield Islands, like you said. But he fortified them with men from the Reach. So this also, for me, goes into the wall building around Oldtown, and just wall building in general. It goes back to Alexander the Great, and where he would build walls, or have walls built around most of the cities that he conquered from the sea. And so I just thought that was kind of interesting, because House Hightower to me is the Alexandria, the lighthouse of Alexandria, and the Oldtown seems like the library of Alexandria to me also.
Yeah.
So it seems like that. And go ahead.
We was just talking, who was that? The God-fearing Gawain. And then you got the Mern King, Mern II. And you'll like this because he was called the Mason. As this could be a playback to the Masonic lodges and stuff. But and the one right after him, he built a new curtain wall about Hightower. And he commanded his lords and bannermen to see to their own defenses. So as the Andals were coming, they knew they were coming. You had Gawain, who sent out knights and people throughout the Reach looking for the children of the forest. You got Mern II, who built the high curtain wall about Hightower, tells his bannermen to see to their own defenses. Then you get King Mern III, the Madling. And this is the one that you were talking about, Steffi. Then he comes along. And he is the one who showered gold and honors on a woods witch who boasted she could raise armies of the dead to fight off the invaders. So, is this
I'll jump in there for a second, too. I also find the timeline makes a lot of sense, like right here, like the 3 Sage Kings and then the 3 Kings prior to it, because you're talking about, hold on, Garth the Seventh, right? If he did end up battling the Rock King and the Storm King, you're talking about a generation of basically like a rebellion happened in the Stormlands against the kings, right? And one of the rebellions was for the Green Queen, who ruled the Rainwood. And supposedly in the Gardner history, they ruled all the way up to the Rainwood. So I'm wondering if this is the Woods Witch, who Meryn is referring to having been claimed to, right? Like to get this advice from. That's it.
Yeah. Well, Woods Witch to me says children of the forest. And although they may be part children of the forest, every Woods Witch that I've seen described has always been small in stature and basically sounds like a half-breed child, children of the forest. So, so it's possible that have involved the children, you know, done just exactly what the TV show said, except it may have been a woods witch in the books rather than the children, which could all basically be the same thing, because if the woods witch is part children of the forest, they're all connected through the werewood net, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. It makes a lot of sense, because it's clear that you don't need a weirwood tree after a while to see through. After your training is done, as Bloodraven said to Bran, you can see anywhere. You don't have to have a tree. I'm trying to find the quote, but I'm sorry. I was trying to find something that I couldn't find, but Steffi, if you want to jump in while I find it. Oh,
Okay.
here it is. So,
no, it's okay.
Go ahead. I'll read it after you're done.
No, I was just gonna like read like little notes that I had. It's okay. You can go.
Okay, great. So let's see. What I'm looking at here is the Kings of Winter sort of play into this, and how maybe why there must always be a Stark in Winterfell is kind of the same sort of idea as the first men kings who sought the help of the children of the forest. The quote from the World of Ice and Fire is, "Of the night in the White Wood, where supposedly the children of the forest emerged from beneath a hollow hill to send hundreds of wolves against an Andal camp. When the Andal king, Erig the Kingslayer, surrounded the hill, the children emerged to defend it, calling down clouds of ravens and armies of wolves, or so the legend tells us. Gwaine the Fourth, the gods fearing, sent his warriors searching out the children of the forest, in the hopes that the Greenseers and their magic could halt the invaders. King Durin the 21st took the unprecedented step of seeking out the remaining children of the forest in the caves and the hollow hills where they had taken refuge, and making common cause with them against the men from beyond the sea." And then we've got Meryn the Third showering gold and honors on a woods witch who claimed that she could raise armies of the dead to throw the Andals back. And this is something that reminds me of what's happening now with Cotter Pike's letter saying, "Dead things in the water, send help on land." And Jon realizing that this is where my vows set in. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. So the night is still, I think they're still aware that the others are everywhere, even if it's not nighttime, they're still there. Jon of that. So I wonder if they still remember that in the Reach. And it's kind of just a little cool parallel.
Yeah, and what is it? So you were talking about Erig, who in a previous video, like the Andal King, right? Basically, it was like a mockery of his name, and it was given by, I would either assume it was either the Brackens or the Blackwoods who gave him this name. I assume it was the Brackens,
right? Yeah,
he basically betrayed us, right?
Right, and they show up in this part, yeah.
So again, tying it into the north again, even further.
And now we've got two families, one that moved from the north to the south, the Blackwoods, and one that moved from the south to the north, the Manderleys. Married into the Stark line. It's kind of interesting.
The thing that I don't understand is how can I put it? Okay, so the Reach is very not magical. They don't really spout that sort of thing, right? They don't really push it onto you, like there's this god you must believe, right? Yeah, there's little green creatures running around or anything like that. They don't really buy into that. They buy into these aspects of oneself, and they accumulate them into 7, right? So I'm just wondering, how would Marin the Third be presented in such a time? Like, despite it seeming like a dire situation, would his actions be received better, or would they be received worse? Because you're talking about they accepted the Andals right after. So was he even exiled? Like, that's my whole thing, right? Like, you're talking about the whole Reach just accepted the Andals. They're like, oh, it's okay, right? Like, we'll take your faith, we'll have your babies, like. So it just, for me, if I was a king and I was like, yeah, we're gonna raise our dead and we're gonna fight these bitches, like, I'm pretty sure someone would be like, nah, bro, like, we're not doing that, right? Like, get the hell out of here. Right. So
yeah.
So I'm just wondering if there's.
Well, they didn't say he was a sage. They didn't never call him a sage, hon. He was the madling.
No, I'm not saying he was a sage. I'm saying, like,
No, I'm saying. I'm
go.
just. That was a joke, honey. That was a joke. I was kidding.
Oh, okay. You can't joke with me. Like,
sorry.
You know this by now. I
I'm
take things very seriously.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm wondering, like, when I think about kings, I think about how their people would have reacted. Like, John II, like, when I think about him going up the Manor and planting banners and saying hello to everyone along the Manor, to me, that would give a better audience. Like, it would be, the people would be more loyal to someone like that, someone that went to travel throughout the land, or Garth VII, who gave them all this long prosperity, right? So I'm just wondering, like, it kind of jumps really quickly, this Andal time, the arrivals of the Andals, and then the Andals and the 3 sages. So for me, like, these quick kings almost feel like they were rejected, like they were killed or something like that, due to their views on how to solve the arrival of them. Although, to me, they were already in the Vale, like it says in the book, right? And even here it says that they're in the Vale. We just need to protect ourselves, right? So, yeah, that's what I'm
they.
You know that on the Lord, I lost my train of thought. The never mind. It'll come back in a minute. Go ahead.
I know how that feeling.
Oh, I know what it was. I know what it was. When you're talking about the one that went up the Mander and placed his flags and talked to everybody and all like that, Steffie, that kind of reminds me of the Starks going to the Mountain Clan. It's because, you know, the Mountain Clan, if you'll just go up there and drink with them, eat with them, and let them see you, they'll be yours forever, you know. And that's kind of reminiscent of that, and that may be some of that along the way in the other regions.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like, when Stannis goes, John's like, no, go to the Mountain Clans, screw the Red Fort, like, or the Dread Fort, like, don't go that way. Go to them first, eat, drink, be merry with them. It's kind of like what Ned does in the beginning of the book. Supposedly, one of the lessons he taught his kid were to, every time there's a lord or there's not a lord, is to always see someone beside you, like one of your people beside you, so you hear what's going on, like whether it's the kennel master or whether it's this person or that person. So I'm wondering, it's kind of like Eris or who am I thinking of? Ginny of Oldtown, how she always had that witch around, the ghost of High Heart. So if she was viewed poorly based on that decision, right? And basically, Dunk, he should have been king, but he was rejected due to that involvement. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
Duncan the Small, he had to give up his crown. Yeah, it is. It is sort of the same thing, and it's really interesting. There's quite a few of the same things. I mean, there's with this Garth the Fourth or Garth the Ninth who built septons and septs, and so did Ned for Catelyn
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Winterfell. So
He stayed.
interesting too.
But he stayed old gods. You know, the one that the first of them that
Right,
was it the first one, Gardner, the first of the three
right.
states, Garth the Ninth. Yeah.
Yeah, Garth the
Um.
Ninth. Yeah, it
Mhm.
was, and Ned was the first that at Winterfell. So that was a long time later, but still,
Mhm.
it's
It's a good
interesting
comparison, though.
that yeah, it's interesting that he built that just for Catelyn when he believed in the old gods. He never stopped believing in the old gods, and neither did Garth the Ninth. So there's a lot of it is repeating itself, and almost right from this spot here. I think when the Dance of the Dragons happens and the Hour of the Wolf even happens again. I found it really interesting that during the Dance of the Dragons, when uh, Cregan Stark was Hand of the King, was said to be the Hour of the Wolf. And then I was listening to A Dance of Dragons the other day, and during one of the John chapters, when the wildlings are coming over the wall, it's almost time for the fight against the others, and this is the Hour of the Wolf. And I thought, me now, because it almost seems like it's a time getting ready for battle, but I don't know. I just can't figure it out. I just thought it was really cool that it was in both of those places, because I just thought it might be an hour of the night, but it obviously represents a lot more.
Yeah, yeah, we were getting at that like in a couple of streams, like how this can't be it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's gonna
Yeah.
be more to it. I'm gonna go hunting for that quote, and I'm gonna go hunting for other things like that. Like there's something there has to be something with the time. Like it doesn't make sense to me why it's got to honor something or be a prophecy to something. It's got to be more. It's just got to be.
It does. And I mean, I've looked at them so many times, I can't even tell you. It's just amazing. And I can't figure it out. I think we have to know a little bit more to figure it out. But right there, I think it's got something to do with the moon, with all of it, cosmology. Um, there was something else that I found kind of interesting here with the Arm of Dorn, is that the king Greenhand led the first men across the Arm of Dorn. Older tales claim that he predated the arrival of the first men, making him not only the first human in Westeros, but also the only human, and that he children of the forest and giants. So now it's repeated again later, way later on down the line of the Gardner kings. They've now come children of the forest again.
Yeah.
So in some tales, he's a god. In a few, he's one of the eldest ones and demands a blood sacrifice to ensure a bountiful harvest. Now, a bountiful harvest is always ensured by a ritual, a blood sacrifice in those days, but it's it's just a mirror of what's going on in the north. And some say that Garth Greenhand was a green god who does this every autumn, only to be reborn again in spring, which is kind of how I see maybe with John, is that it's kind of an Osiris sort of myth. And there's a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of mixing in with Dionysus myths with the Reach and all the wine, the arbor, honey wine, the arbor gold, it's interesting that those tie together. I think that I think that it has something a lot to do with the bringing out of the old religions, the old, as we would say, pagan ways into the new religion. You know, a lot of the time in the Middle Ages, in the medieval ages, they didn't want to, but it was law of the land after a while. So there became mystery schools. And I wonder if a lot of this stuff doesn't have to do with the mystery schools, because it went into House Hightower and magical houses like that, that maybe they were hiding the knowledge like the mystery schools did.
I think
Or
they still are.
Logic, yeah.
I think they still are hiding
Because
the
we've
knowledge.
got right now Maris the Mad Maid and Leighton Hightower up for a
Yeah.
decade in the tower practicing magic.
Yep. And now magic's back.
Right.
Weren't they surprised?
Right. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
also,
I wonder if they were.
it also goes back to the gray oh, what's that guy's name? Graydon or whatever his name is.
Oh.
Oh yeah, Graydon Gardner. And like this theme of
Right.
like also involving the Hightowers too, to an extent, because they also locked it out. And then Maris the Maid, you're talking about Argo, I think Argo skin something. Argo stone skin, yeah. He basically howled
Stone skin.
outside, right, for Maris because he won her, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, those tie-ins there.
Yeah. During the time of the Sage Kings is kind of interesting, because then the Tyrells come into it, and we have the three we've first mentioned now: Merle the First, the Meek, and Gawain the Fifth, who was the first to be knighted. Then we've got Sir Alistair Tyrell, founder of House Tyrell, who was made Gawain the Fifth's champion and sworn shield. Then there's Merle the First and Gawain the Fifth, who married Andal maidens, like we said, to bind their fathers to the Gardner realm. And then they also bequeathed lands, wives, we already said that, to powerful of the more powerful of the Andals, who were descending on the Reach. A pledge for fealty instead of war. And numerous houses of the Reach trace their ancestry back to the Andal adventures. So it's almost like it is the intermingling of war that they do trace their ancestry back to.
Yeah,
Nan,
just
did you
like
want to say something?
just like I was just saying, just like the Starks, the intermarrying, they did a lot of that too. It's, you know, you got King Garland after the Sage ones, and he was a child, and House Tyrell ruled the Reach in his name, and eventually, now House Tyrell is an Andal, was one of the Andals that they made a champion, and eventually they did give Mary into the Tyrell line so that they could claim blood from Garth Greenhand. That was all.
They followed exactly what the Gardner Kings followed, which was to kind of, you know, we look at Mace Tyrell and say he's always the last one to show up. He waits until he sees who the victor is, and then he comes in. The Gardner Kings did too, so it comes from way back, it looks like. And it seems to save the house, you know. It's almost like when Torrhen Stark knelt. It's something like that, where you give up something, but you actually save your house, your family, your lands, all of that. So after Alistair Tyrell, and it was kind of interesting what he did, was that this is when they also encouraged Andal craftsmen, especially, as you said, Nan, blacksmiths and stonemasons to settle throughout the Reach. Empire talk about. I mean, that's really. I wonder if they were in league with Bran the Builder, or if this is the southern version of Bran the Builder legend. I just don't know, but I'm to look into that more because I feel like there is a connection.
I'll jump in there for a second.
It's
So I had a problem with the masonry part. To me, you're talking about the Crypts and Winterfell. They go back to the Age of Heroes, basically. So how are those people able to depict someone if this hasn't been brought into the land yet? I think it's a bunch of BS, to be honest. I think anyone can draw. If you have a stick, you can draw in sand, right? It's kind of like what is that stupid cartoon movie? How to Train Your Dragon, right? Like where the dragon just starts drawing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure if the Children of the Forest are able to carve obsidian, like, you know what I mean, to make it into a figurehead, I'm pretty sure that they can do that. So for me, this whole masonry thing isn't really a craft that is learnt, but it's learnt all over the world in separate areas, and its growth is equal to that. Like you can't limit someone's imagination, right? Like, so for me, it doesn't make sense. I can understand the forging and the mixing of like copper and tin and all that stuff, right? Because you wouldn't really know that unless you did it by accident, kind of thing, right? Like the whole alchemy part of it. So that's it's my beef a little bit.
It's kind of how I think they might have made just by mistake, you know?
Yeah, but you know, we were talking a while back when we were on the north, and we were talking about the bronze and the iron. Well, they had to have had some kind of skill in making metallurgy to have made bronze to begin with.
They did.
So, and then they had to have had the masonry. And history is always written by the winners, if you want to take it even a step farther.
Yeah, I agree. Sure. I agree with that. Yeah, because you're talking about the Iron Islands. Their iron deposits in there is what kept them afloat for so long. Like as one of the most powerful realms in Westeros. So for me, like all these little things, like all these, oh, he did this amazing thing, right? Like it's kind of like in the World Book how they always say his name is writ large. What did he do?
Yeah.
It's
written large, but there's nothing saying what he did actually to get it written large.
Yeah,
he in a lot of spaces.
Maybe the Maester's hiding things from us. I mean, it's just all I can ever hear is George's voice saying, "Oh, where did you get that information from? My world book? You know, that was written by Maesters. It might not be right." It's like, oh Lord. So what I thought was pretty cool of having to do with the Masons is that a reference to Freemasons, and like I was saying, the mystery schools. It might be more of a to the building of Oldtown, the building of Hightower, the building of whoever built the black stones, whoever formed the black stones, whoever made the mazes, whoever did all of that, who might be the elder ones, the deep ones. I heard George say once in an interview that Dragonstone was made by, I think I said this last time, by them. They had the ability to just imagine what something would be, and it would just become that. Vision what Dragonstone was to look like, and then it would. So he said, just magic, you just have to take it as that. So that, I think that's different than the oily black stone that's underneath these things. like say when you go to a museum or when you see a statue of a god or a demigod, they're always standing on a black cube. Even like I have a few in my living room of statues of Egyptian goddesses who are standing on black cubes. There's the stone of Mecca. The Romans used to say, "I swear by the black stone," when they were saying, I'm telling the truth. It's got so many different connotations to it and what it could be. It could be evil. It could be another sort of weirwood sort of net where you can see things and hear things, or it might be a block of some kind. I really don't. All I know is that the thing that jumps out at me the most is that dragonstone smells like sulfur and brimstone, which is the smell of dragons. And that most likely they think, at least, that that's how the Valerians decided. They knew that dragonstone would be a good place for the dragons, is that it smelled like that. Resembled Valeria. So I think it's interesting also that they destroyed the oaken seat, because that takes away their ability to see through the weirwood or through some. It seems like that was oak, but that's so close to a weirwood for me that it seems like it might have been a weirwood. No,
That was Garth the 10th.
Yeah.
That was Garth the 10th. They chopped it to pieces, burned it up, and he was the one that was senile. And they found this old man tied in his bed, whimpering and covered in his own filth. And like you said, the Dornish considered it an act of mercy to kill him. That's when the High Garden was put to the torch, and everything was taken then.
Okay, so on that note, like sorry.
No, go ahead, Steph.
Go
ahead.
Parallel.
Yeah, like on your thing, in the last stream I brought up how John the Oak and stuff like that. It doesn't make sense that he wasn't given enough credit. Like you're talking about the 3 oaks on his the oaken the oaken shields, like their banner basically. It has 3 oaks, and then you have the sisters, right? The werewood sisters, right? The 3 entwined werewoods, right. And then you also have this oaken throne. And how it's supposedly weaved. Like for me, the house isn't original. Like it doesn't seem like that is the truth. Like that's House Gardner. It seems like it's another house and they were overthrown. That's what it seems like to me.
Right. Well, that's cool that you say that, because when it happened was when King Garth the 10th, the Greybeard, which I find interesting. It reminds me of Gandalf. So it very long, and they witnessed the height of the Gardner power, and he was the one who had only daughters and married lords Manderley and Peake. So once the rival lords began warring, the Lannisters and the Dornish attacked the kingdom, but they're there. So, and that's when the Dornish king sacked Highgarden, killed Garth Greybeard, and destroyed the Oaken Seat. It's just like the minute the Lannisters come in, you know, something gets destroyed, something important, something old, something beautiful, something natural. It's almost like I don't know, that it's something that's not quite clicking yet, but there's a connection that I can't.
I'll jump in. Okay, so Rowan Goldtree is it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be Lan the Clever's kid. So you're talking about if that's a true tale, the Lannisters have much of this acclaim on Highgarden and the Gardner realm, right, the Reach, than they do to also the Casterlys and the Western lands. So that could be another reason, because you don't I don't understand how so much peace, like the Gardners didn't really go to war. If you've noticed, there was like a few instances where they go to war, but not really. They don't fully go right into it. So it's almost like there was a reason why there was this
Yeah.
claim to this land by the other houses. So yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And maybe
They'd
it did
rather
have
make love
something to
than
do.
war.
Right. Especially the Lannisters. The other thing that it said in the World Book that I thought was interesting is that after the Oaken Seat was destroyed and Garth Greybeard was killed and Highgarden was sacked, the anarchy that followed lasted a decade until Sir Osmond Tyrell, the High Steward of Highgarden, made common cause with the other lords of the Reach, both houses Peake and Manderley. The ruin that was Highgarden and supporting Meryn VI Gardner, relying on the counsel of his stewards, which was Osmond Tyrell, Osmond's son Tyrell, who was allowed to marry his youngest daughter in gratitude, Robert's son Lorient, Meryn's son Garth the 11th, or the Painter of the Red Mountains. And they retaliated against the Dornish for invading the Red Mountains. So that's a scary dude right there who painted the Red Mountains. You know, that's like the field, the where Bloodraven and Bittersteel fought, the Redgrass Field. Sort of reminds me of that. He painted the Red Mountains. He painted the Red Mountains of Dorne red. And
it was said that they were green until Garth painted them red with Dornish blood. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also a throwback to. Sorry, Ashley.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
It's also a throwback to Brandon of the Bloody Blade and Rose of the Red Lake. From the lake went from blue to red. Again, masking that this war is translated into color or paint in this case.
True.
Yeah.
Too. The Red Fork was always filled with blood after 5 Kings and the Ruby Ford because of Rhaegar. So it's been red for
the
quite
Red
a while.
Wedding. The Red Wedding.
And the Red Wedding. Yeah, I mean, all of the, it's like, it really is like the rivers running red with blood. They are. A lot of them.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary, really. So, I want to just point out about this. That was kind of cool was that there was. Sorry, I got to get more organized. Oh, yeah. Go ahead if you want to talk about him, Cynthia. That'd be great.
King Graydon Gardner. He was the king of the Reach and head of the House Gardner. He attempted an invasion of Dorne, but he was thrown back by Nymeria herself. This happening in the age where Nymeria came. And we're getting to the Targaryens coming into power if Nymeria is already here.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool because it made me think of Nymeria the wolf, the dire wolf with her pack in the south right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool that there's Nymeria again. So it's repeating.
And then you get King Perceon III, and he's the one who exiled House Manderley from the Reach, and he was 26th on my count. But he's after all of these. The Andals are already here, and finally is when the Manderleys get to the north.
True.
Yeah, and this goes back to what I said on earlier too, where if the Manderleys did control some aspect of the Mander, it could be the same thing with the White Knife and them hoarding ships there, right, to attack something. So again, this southern and northern ambition, and what are the Manderleys really doing? So
yeah, because they were building ships then for it looks like either the kings or for themselves, and now they're building them for the Starks, but maybe for themselves also again.
Merchants.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
sea merchants.
they didn't connect the rivers is kind of interesting to me. They could have done that,
Mm-hmm.
and more ways of getting around, but they didn't do that. So it kind of implies they want to
Yeah,
keep
and House Peak wound up with Manderley's seat at Dunstonbury. Dunstonbury. King Garth the 12th Gardner.
Oh, hold on,
And
wait.
is okay.
Also, I'd like to mention that we do not know where Dunstonbury is in the Reach. It doesn't ever mention it. So
Exactly.
it's a mystery in itself where it is placed in the Reach, because the Mander, the waters are shallow in some areas, and then as they go more, I would say, I think it's west, right? No, as it goes more east, right, it becomes deeper, right, which is closer to Highgarden, right, where in the west it's more shallow. And if they are placed in the west and then they're going that way, but then you also have to picture the Ironborn too, and how the longships also came up the Mander. So
right.
Again, this dual thing, where are they protecting or are they not? But the Dunstonbury thing kind of ticks me off that we don't know where it is, because that would explain a lot. Like, did they have ships? Did they not have ships? Yeah,
it would. Yeah.
Yeah, it says here that Dunstonbury was all it says is it's on the Mander. It was built on the Mander, and for siding with King Darien, stripped of it also. And they were also White Grove, and leaving them only Star Pike. And it's unknown which of the houses the Iron Throne granted the stripped castles to. So they granted them to somebody.
Right. The other thing is that the time of the Golden Hand, Garth the Seventh, a giant in both war and peace again, when he turned back the Dornish, he led King Ferrus Fowler led 10,000 men on the Wide Way, which is now the name of the Prince's Pass, which is what now is called the Prince's Pass. So, and he was intent on conquest, and soon after he had turned his attention to the sea and drove the last Ironborn from the strongholds of the Shield Islands. And there he settled the lands with his fiercest warriors, granting special dispensations for purpose of turning them into the first defense against the Ironborn should they return. And this was a great success, because to this day, men of the Four Shields provide themselves with defending the mouth of the Mander, of the Reach, against any foes. So, last and greatest war between the Storm King and the King of the Rock, the Reach between them, he didn't let it happen. That was the battle, I think, of the three armies. Yeah. And that's kind of the same way that, had it not been for Robb and Jane Westerling, they would have settled the war of the Five Kings. These are all wars of succession too. This one with certain kings, which I just find like there's got to be someone playing around behind the scenes for a war of succession to start. It almost seems like it just happens, but I would think, yeah,
it's politics. It's called politics.
Right. But there was a lot of strange stuff, kind of like it is now, going on at King's Landing with the small councils and things like that. There was a lot of nepotism. There was a lot of, this is when Lord Beesbury had his throat opened by, I think it was Kristen Cole during the Dance of the Dragons. He was, I think, master of coin. So right around here was the time that Lord Beesbury was killed, and that took out House Beesbury too, I believe. So a lot of a lot of things happen because of all these, occurrences in the Reach.
Yeah.
And strangely, they don't, we don't look at them as...
But you get to, after King Perseon, you get to King Garth, the 12th Gardner. And the only thing that says about him is that a coin that had been minted during the reign of Garth the 12th is found beneath the chamber pot in Rugen's cell by Qyburn. This leads Queen Cersei Lannister to believe that the Tyrells has something to do with Tyrion's escape. That's all it says about the fella. So we
all know that it was Varys, right, who put it there, just to make it seem like that.
Yeah, I would think so. And then it goes to
Which
King
brings me back
Garth.
again.
Go ahead.
Uh-huh.
King Garth, the 7th Gardner, he was slain Battle of Summerfield. He was slain by King Argilac. He was the last of the Durrandon kings in the Battle of Summerfield. Yeah. And then I think we got one more, and that'll be the last of them. The 9th Gardner, last of the Gardner kings. He died in the field of fire. Prince Edmund Gardner, his son and heir, Prince Gawain Gardner, his son, 2 other sons, 2 young grandsons, a nephew, were the last of the Gardners, and there are no more.
6 died at the field of fire, and his whole family.
Yep.
It's strange. Steffie said this before. Why would he bring his whole entire family, cousins, everyone? And all of them died. It seems like he would leave someone behind, at least, to carry on the house. If everyone.
Well, they did like the Starks. They killed the men, and I guess they left the women alive, if there were sisters.
Right. Which, started the house of. So, I found something kind of interesting about the color green in medieval literature. I just started to think about what do these colors mean? Because I always like to get into the colors, as we know. So, Old Norse, the word for green stems from a verb that means to grow, or in the form of vegetation. So, again, crops and fertility. The connection between the color green and the natural world is clearly represented in medieval Icelandic literature and associated with plants, pastures, and the color of the sea, It refers to green slopes, meadows, in the form of place names, like the Green Moor, places like that. In Iceland, there are a lot of, or in Norse mythology, there are a lot of words that mean a geographic place that's green. So the most famous in the Norse colony is of green, is why they thought people would be more willing to settle and visit if it was called Greenland, like when they were just maybe deciding whether to call Greenland Iceland or Greenland. Seems a lot more inviting to go to Greenland than it does to an icy place. So the examples so far seem to indicate a deceptive usage of the word green as related to natural elements, just in medieval literature. And I found that really interesting because of Jamie and Brienne and the Sapphires when they trick Vargo Hoat. And, you know, lying seems to sort of go along with the color green a lot, or deception seems to kind of go hand in hand with the color green. Cersei and Jamie have green eyes. They're always being deceptive. Also, the evidence from the poetic and prose Eddas of the Norse mythology suggest a metaphorical connection. In both prose, the color green appears more often than not in conjunction with the Yggdrasil tree, which just is, you know, the tie-in between the South and the North. The evergreen tree of Norse mythology, the symbol of cosmic order. And this is what I keep trying to get at, is that the balance is off. And the Isle of Green Men, whoever it is, that's the alchemists, whoever it is that's trying to keep the balance, I think it's the Green Men on the Isle of, on the God's Eye. But, you know, there's also, I'm sure, a lot of other people, maybe the Hightowers, trying to keep the balance with their magic. I don't know. But there's got to be more than one person, more than one group. And maybe the Green Seers are part of it too, but I don't know. Anyway, I'll just read the rest of this. In the Poetic Edda, we also associate Ragnhildur. Her name is Queen Ragnhildur, which is just the queen that's there during Ragnarok. She dreamt of the birth of a gigantic tree in her garden, and its stem was red as blood, and its trunk was light green, its branches white as snow, and they were so long that they spread across all of Norway and beyond. The symbolism of the root of the tree's coloring is explained toward the end of the Edda, because it's green, but the tree is clearly revealed as an allegorical image of the Norwegian royal house and its long-standing lineage. I found that really interesting. Like, does the weirwood, the main weirwoods, and different houses, like the dead tree of the Blackwoods, does that indicate something? You know, does the God's Woods, the way they're set up, do they indicate something about the house themselves? And maybe the tree sort of each represent a house in a way. Each of them have their own faces. Each of them have their own God's Woods, the ones. So I wonder if those trees maybe represent more this Norse mythology is saying. I just found that really interesting, that it was for this queen's house.
I think that the God's Wood is the church. Go ahead, Steffi.
No, you can jump in, Nan.
I was just going to say that you were talking about it being this church. I was just saying that the Godwood itself is the Children of the Forest church. That is their area. The God's Wood. That's their tabernacle. That's all.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, when you were saying, like, talking about that, and the green, all I kept thinking of was, the Secret Garden. And this also ties into the Hightowers a little bit too, right? Where you have this, like, especially with the maze and the oily black stone on top of that, and this rejuvenation property in it and all that stuff. Like, maybe this also goes into what I was saying before, that maybe all of the kids of Garth Greenhand are themselves a story of one figure, not a separate identity of figures, right? So, yeah, it's just...
Yeah.
I kind of lost my train of thought.
Yeah, so much of this is... I got it, what you were saying. I think a lot of this is so symbolic, really, of just how the Reach began, how the South began, and then the story of the Kings of Winter, the Barrow Kings, are kind of the same story in the North. Actually, I think it's really cool, but it almost makes me wonder if one is just taking from the other legend, you know, and that it's not North and South, that it's just one tree. There is only one Yggdrasil tree, so maybe there's just, and this, the first men were there first, so maybe their first king, their first knight, all of that in the North is the real deal. And this in the Reach, maybe the green is a little bit indicative of deception. They weren't the first. I don't know, just something interesting to think about.
Yeah, that also ties into what Bran was when he enters the weirwood cave, right? He says that there's so many branches, there must be a grove atop, right? But is there just one solo tree, or is this the combination of all of them, and like kind of like breeding into that deception and the lack of information, that like ignorance is bliss kind of thing, right? Where you don't know. Yeah, I like that. It's nice.
Yeah, especially having to do with the faith of the seven. Something you wanted to hide.
Oh, also, that also goes into...
The Christian church does that.
Sorry. Okay, so
No,
it kind of goes...
I was done.
Okay, it also goes into like the Crypts of Winterfell, where Theon is saying like some of the pathway is blocked off. Like, and is this like trying to hide that sort of like that one tree that they are connected, right? Like, because if the river in the Weirwood Cave is connected to the Black Pool, let's say in the Godswood in Winterfell, then technically that would be the proof of that, right? If you were to think about it, if you were to see huge weirwood root going all the way up and then sprouting up somewhere else, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was something about this. I don't know really quite what, but it might have been Princess Rhaenyra, when the queen who never was, you know, who had the twisted black baby and was screaming, get it out, during the War of Succession at that time, the Dance of the Dragons. It made me think of the bronze sickle woman coming out of the pond that Bran sees at Winterfell, saying, my son will avenge me, my son will avenge me. It made me wonder about a connection maybe with the Targaryens there. And her, you know, with the whole War of Succession and the blacks and the greens. I don't know. It may not. It just really reminded me of that for some reason.
Yeah, isn't that scene in the book it's supposed to lead to the next Duncan Eggs, which is the She-Wolves of Winterfell, right? Is that what it is? Yeah, and in the Succession issue of who's supposed to be the next male heir of Winterfell.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely I could see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean there's just nothing but really on top of that a long of kind of Arthurian stories, you know, that are just really kind of fun to read and sweet. That I don't know that this, beyond what we've covered, really, we know now, before the Winds of Winter, I don't know how much more.
I think that's about it on the Gardners.
Really.
Yeah, I think we can go to the Hightowers, don't y'all, ladies?
Sure.
I'll start. The city of Oldtown. It's usually known as the location of the Citadel. It's home of the Maesters, who serve as counselors, doctors, scientists, postmasters of the Seven Kingdoms. It's also the city's starry sept, was the seat of the faith of the Seven until the construction of the Great Sept of Baelor in King's Landing. Other septs include the Sailor's Sept, the Lord's Sept, and the Seven Shrines. Oldtown also has a mother house, and these are temples that cater to foreigners such as summer islanders and red priests of the Lord of Light. There are located all throughout, all up and down the wharves of Oldtown. And Oldtown is one of the most important ports of the Seven Kingdoms. It's trading ships from all over Westeros, as well as summer islands, free cities, and other places across the narrow sea. And it's constantly crowded in the harbor. The city itself is stunningly beautiful. It has many rivers and canals that crisscross its cobbled streets, and breathtaking stonemasons are common. It kind of reminds me of Bravos if it was made clean and pretty, with the canals and all. But Old Town lacks the squalor and the drab and the wattle of King's Landing, which usurps its position as the preeminent city of Westeros. However, Old Town is a labyrinth of wines, alleys, markets, and streets, such as Thieves' Market and Wine. West of the Honey Wine lie guild halls, which sit along the shoreline. The largest structure in the city, and also the tallest structure in Westeros, is the Hightower. And I love talking about the Hightower. It's a lighthouse which extends some 800 feet into the sky and is topped by a huge beacon which can be seen for many miles out to sea. The city is policed by the City Watch of Old Town. It's commanded by Sir Morin Tyrell, uncle to Lord Mace. Old Town is ruled from the Hightower by House Hightower, who were original kings in their own right, but later swore fealty to House Gardner. They became vassals of the Tyrells after the War of Conquest. The Hightowers are known for their loyalty and being stalwart. The current rulers of the city is Leighton Hightower, and I believe he is still locked himself in the Hightower. And I'll take a breath and let y'all talk for a little bit.
Steffie, do you want to go ahead, or should I go?
You can go, because I didn't really do the Lords of Hightower, so I only have like a few things to go off of with this.
Yeah, me too. I'm just looking for my old writings on it.
Okay,
I can go on.
I'll
Go ahead,
talk for a
Steffie.
bit.
Sorry.
Okay, when it came to Uther of the Hightower and him marrying Maris the Maid, again, you're going into the Grey and Stone Skin, and is there a tie into the Lannisters with Rowan of Goldtree, right? And her tying her hair and then being Lan the Clever's mother and stuff like that. And then this tie-in to Tyrion, which is more present than ever when you consider the High Towers, actually, and where you would assume Dany would go if anything were to, if she were to cross the Narrow Sea. I feel like that would be one of the few places that she would try to convince and possibly send Tyrion. You also have, I found it very interesting that, hold on, let me try to find this. There was Samwell the Starfire. He also sacked Oldtown during Otho the Second Hightower. So that's very interesting to me, because you're talking about Sam Tarly is there himself. And is this going to happen again? Is what Sam's actions really doing in the Ravenry going to have that massive of a consequence that it's going to send them to be sacked by Euron or by whoever, right? Because if Euron is looking for some way to bind himself to this horn or to call upon it without dying, and if Sam takes that book or anything of the nature, or like an item or anything like that, in order to stop him or to help Jon in the north, then it could, I think I froze. No, okay. freaked me out there for a second. So again, I also do find it weird that Samuel de Starville is was the king of the Torrentine and a lord of Starfell, which is a Dane, of course. So it's definitely interesting that maybe this is a prophetic or like a foretelling to what Sam is going to be doing in the near future. He's going to go to the Danes to see exactly what happened. And maybe this is where Sam actually learns of the tale itself of John. That maybe he is Rhaegar's kid, or maybe he is Ashara Dane's kid, or whoever. Yep.
I like that because I think that Nan, did you have something you wanted to say? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, it's just a little history on the Oldtown. Go ahead. I can read it after we give it a little bit.
Go ahead. I'd love to hear it.
The origins of Oldtown are lost to time. The oldest runic records of the first men and records of the maesters claim that to have lived among the first men, among the children of the forest. Confirmed men have lived at the mouth of the Honeywine since the Dawn Age. Master Jellicoe suggested the settlement at Whispering Sound began as a trading post where ships from Valeria and Old Gis and the Summer Isles could resupply and trade with so-called elder races. In the Age of Heroes, what is now the Ravenry of the Citadel was supposedly the stronghold for a pirate lord who robbed ships as they came down the Honeywine. House Hightower lived within an ancient fortress of oily black stone on Battle Isle and subsequently built the High Tower above it. Rival kings, pirates, and reavers coveted Oldtown's wealth as the city grew more powerful, but it was protected by only wooden palisades and ditches. In one century, the city was sacked, like you said, by Samuel the Starfire, Cohord the Cruel, and Giles the Woe. 3/4 of the city's inhabitants were reportedly sold to slavery, which we reported earlier. Oldtown joined the Kingdom of the Reach when King Lyman Hightower and King Garland II Gardner agreed to marry each other's daughters. And it survived the Andal invasion by welcoming the Andals, not resisting. Lord Dorian Hightower married an Andal princess, while his grandson Daemon converted to the faith of the Seven. Now, go ahead, Ashley.
There. Steffi, did you want to say anything? Or?
Yeah, I'll jump in really quickly. I also, when we did the Stark Kings, due to the line being so uninformative, there wasn't very much description to go off of aside from the White Knife and the kings, like the Barrow Kings, the Red Kings, and I mentioned Cohord the Cruel, right, of House War, and how he ruled the sea from the north to the south, all along the western. I always get west and east confused. It drives me nuts. Sorry, I'm not good at geography. So he ruled all along that side, and so again, this is tying into how the reach in those kings and the northern kings, like there's so many more in the south compared to the north, where you see this drastic change if you were to link them properly. You're talking about the Starks are only a couple thousand centuries, and the Gardner Kings are like up here. So you're talking about the whole migration of everything. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. Ashley? Okay. Ashley, you got something to add, huh? Also, we got some on the Targaryen era. We have Aegon, who came to Oldtown, and he was acknowledged king by the High Septon, who had advised Lord Manfred Hightower to yield without conflict. And it was also, Oldtown was struck with the Great Spring Sickness of 209 AC, suffered badly, second only to King's Landing. Oldtown was also hit with the Grey Plague, a more deadly and fast-acting cousin to the grayscale. The outbreak occurred when Grand Maester Pycelle was young and wiped out half the city and three-quarters of the citadel during its run. To prevent its spread, Lord Quentin Hightower ordered the gates barred, all the ships in the harbor burned, and anyone trying to leave killed. They were harsh measures, but they contained the plague. And for all that, he rescinded the order after the plague was burned itself out. Him and his young son were pulled from their horses and had their throats slit by the survivors. Oh, okay. Prince Oberyn Martell and Princess Elia visited Oldtown on the way to Casterly Rock, where their mother was to broker their marriage to the Lannister twins, Cersei and Jaime. And then we get into the Hightowers. So, come on, ladies, help me out.
Like I said, I didn't reach your
Sorry, I was
lords
muted
of the
before there.
Hightower. So
It's all right.
Okay, I'm not an endless encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have limits to my knowledge.
I didn't.
You had me fooled. I refer to you so much. I really do. Whip.
I didn't. You are. It's true. I didn't do it. I didn't do a lot of research on the lords either. I just have a lot of thoughts about the Hightowers, of course. I mean, you know, their motto, "We light the way," really important. Yeah. And I think it goes beyond just the flame and the tower itself at sea. It's almost like it lights the way to, you know, the path we're talking about of how we go from south to north to a god figure. And also that it has the maze underneath. That to me is a extension kind of thing. And also has it Oldtown. Aegon said he would go because it was easier for him to think, and nobody can understand why, because of the smell of sulfur and brimstone. But to him, I think because of his dragon blood, maybe, I don't know, it was easier. I think it has to do with the maze that made it a good place for him to think. Maybe he learned something from the stone. Maybe he could hear something.
Yeah, the stone.
What'd you say, Cynthia?
So you're thinking it's more like a monolith.
I said it.
Yeah.
It's like a conduit to knowledge, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Steffie.
Yeah. I do. It's one of those things where it's either it can either act as a block or as a source of knowledge. And I think that the mazes show us that it is something having to do with mystery, magic, with knowledge being kept, because that's how the Freemasons, that's their walkabouts, that's the spiritual going counterclockwise in a circle. You know, all of that is very spiritual. So I see the Hightowers as people who are kind of guarding mystery knowledge, secret knowledge that in the Middle Ages in our world, you could be killed for having this kind of knowledge. You could have been hung as a heretic. You could have been burned alive. So I think this might be, the Hightowers to me are kind of like that secret school. They've got Oldtown. They've got so much going on around them where teaching is welcomed. And the tower, the fact that that was where the glass candles first started to burn, and you know, little Archmaester Marwin's running around like he's just can't stand how happy he is that the glass candles are burning. I was just looking at the World of Ice and Fire, and the Hightower, it of course looks like the Lighthouse of Alexandria, but it also kind of resembles a glass candle in a way, which is
Yes,
maybe
it does.
saying
Hadn't
we
thought of
like
that.
the way of remembering. Maybe that's why he's been Lyman Hightower and the Mad Maid have been up in the tower for a decade.
Mm-hmm. Very
I don't
possible.
know, it's interesting.
But they
Okay,
also
Yeah,
have a
I
Valyrian
just think the
sword
Hightower
named.
is
Go ahead,
all
hon.
three of us.
Cynthia, do you want to
I was
go
just
ahead?
saying that they possess a Valyrian steel sword called Vigilance, and that plays into what you were saying, remembering the past, remembering or staying focused on what is important. Um, and you know what it said on the high towers, they are very fascinating to me. They're among the oldest and proudest of the great houses. They prefer trade to war, and they've avoided many of them because of that. Um, and they are legitimately referred to as being either of Hightower or of Oldtown. And some Hightowers are said to have dabbled in alchemy and necromancy. The family is ancient, existing since the dawn of days when they were petty kings. While most scholars believe they descended from the first men, Master Yendel posits they descended from seafarers and traders that settled at the top of the Whispering Sound in an earlier time, men who came to Westeros before the first men and seem to have founded the original incarnation of Oldtown. Whatever the truth, the High Towers reside in the ancient black stone fortress of Battle Isle at the mouth of the Honeywine. And that black stone we can get to next. Go ahead, girls.
Yeah.
Do you want me to jump
Steph,
in
do you want to
before
say
you?
anything?
Yeah. Okay, so Oldtown in the Maze and the Oily
You
Back
can if you
Stone.
want.
Okay, it kind of seems like this monolith, this oily black stone, kind of seeps above ground, like it almost like it transcends generations, like it continuously affects them, right? You're talking about the Citadel is technically around this oily back stone. You're talking about like Oldtown itself is a maze, right? Like Sam realized does that, and what's his face in the prologue, I believe, in epilogue in the Feast for Crows. Pig Boy.
Or Dawkins.
Yeah, Pig Boy, Pig
Oh,
Face.
Pate.
Pete,
Yeah.
Pate.
Pig Boy.
Pate, yeah.
Okay, so I use what I have at my disposal. Okay. So the glass candles, I also realized that, and with you have the high tower itself. I don't believe the other towers in Oldtown seem like glass candles. I feel like if anything else were to be a glass candle, it would be Harrenhal. And I'm just wondering where the third is. I feel like there is a third, and there has to be a third. To continue this.
Yeah, they're done.
To like, because you're talking about, and then because you're talking about the high tower is black, right? Like black. You're talking about
Right.
Harrenhal's black, right? It's basically almost like the reverse of or the same thing, right? Where there's 3 black ones and then 1 green one. So I'm wondering where that green tower is and where the additional black one is. And I'm probably forgetting one. There is probably another black tower somewhere. The Black Crown could be one. It could be Mokalan.
I guess
So
could be Dragonstone.
yeah, that too, for sure. And then I don't believe the Hightowers are as peaceful as they're made out to be. You're talking about the island where the Hightower is, or like the area that the Hightower is built upon is called Battle Isle. You're talking about the destruction of dragons there. It doesn't seem peaceful. You're also talking about the raiding that happened. You're also talking about closing your doors during the Greystone outbreak, or the Grey Plague or whatever. So it's not a peaceful place as much as people think it is. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mysteries to the Hightower land and the honey wine, like the pirate, and it's fun to dive in there, but you can't get out.
Yeah.
So I avoid it a little bit.
Yeah, that's good. There has to be 3. I love that, because it's,
well, there is 3 more.
it would only
Also,
make sense.
they built 4 successive wooden beacon towers atop the fortress. So you got that, like you said, right?
But in another location.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah, they did. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Hold on, I want to jump in there for one more second. Just one more comment. I also find the light really weird too. It kind of masks out of the Great Wall of China, where during the Mongolian Empire, and their raid on China and all those surrounding countries, they used to light one beacon, and then the other one would light, and so on and so forth, to warn the others that they could be coming up against that wall. It kind of makes me think of the wall, and how it should be there. So you're wondering, if there are dead things in the water, are they going to come around and then go up? Kind of. If that's where the big beacon is. Just a thought. Tinfoil.
Right.
Oh, it's the beacon calling the thing.
I like that.
Calling the old ones from the sea, the beacon. Yeah.
Oh, I
but
like
you get,
that. It could be.
Yeah.
I mean,
it could be.
Yeah, the fact that the Black Ice Army makes it to the Trident only is good. What you just said.
Yeah.
It's also sits on Battle Isle, where there's more black walls. It's just it's all this. The Blackstone really is something that obviously taken from Lovecraft. It's obviously has something to do with maybe Deep Ones, Elder Ones, or something like maze makers from Lorath, but I really don't think it's them. I think it's somebody older than left. But I tend to think that it'll play a bigger part later in the Winds of Winter that we just don't know yet. It's so hard to tie it together. There's the 5 forts, there's the Isle of Toads, there's the Bloodstone Emperor, who had his people worshiping the Blackstone, and they all got sick. And the Blackstone in Mecca that people have, it was actually white, but people have touched it so much it's black. So it's like, and it's a stone of truth. I wonder if George has flipped it and it's a stone of something else, or if, because there's so many different meanings of it. I would think he might take the Roman one, which is to swear by the black stone is swearing the truth. It's like swearing on a Bible.
Mm-hmm.
That it's kind of like, back to the lies again, back to the green and the deception is maybe ours game. Like I feel like they have their own game going on. Like the Game of Thrones is below the Hightowers. They're on the Song of Ice and Fire game. So they're trying to, I mean, I wouldn't doubt if, you know, the fact that they have Oldtown, that they have all these things with, like I said, learning and teaching around them. They even have auxiliary and navigational devices in the Citadel. So the Hightowers have access to so much knowledge, probably more than anyone but Maester Lewin, probably, with his huge library. So it's like, and maybe Illyrium Lopatus, but it's just really interesting to me that they keep building it higher. And, you know, even like Bran thought he could see all the way to the wall, maybe they're going to get to a point where they can, so they actually can light the way.
Could be.
If that's where they're lighting the way to. I almost wonder if they're lighting the way to the Royces who remember in the Vale, which would be difficult, but could be done.
It seems like there should be a chain of beacons. A chain of beacons.
Yes.
Is what it seems like it should be, is a chain of them, starting at the Hightower, and then you got a beacon at the wall, and you know you can see the Hightower beacon from the wall, or you can see the wall from the Hightower. They said you got Uther of the Hightower. This is before the Hightower became one word. He's the one who commissioned Bran the Builder, or his son Brandon, to design the 5th tower, one built entirely of stone. So, you know, then we're getting into the one that is built now, what we see of it. Now, his son, King Jurgen, and Prince Paramore the Twisted were integral in the foundation of the Citadel. Paramore was sickly, and he liked to study. He had a thirst for knowledge, and he surrounded himself with scholars, healers, priests, and sorcerers. And so Uther and his brother, and he was born to form, they both wanted knowledge. So that's how the founding of the Citadel became. After Paramore's died, King Jurgen granted a tract of land beside the Honeywine to Paramore's pets, so they might establish and continue their quest for knowledge. Thus, the Citadel was established and the Order of the Maesters born.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that really interested me in the last one we did. I did a lot of looking into that, and it was cool. One thing you said that just blew my mind just a minute ago is that maybe there's different towers that are the ring forts that were built by the first men and were built on Earth by by Vikings, by Celts, by early settlers to, you know, almost first settlers of certain places, ring forts everywhere. They're called lanterns for the dead, so that souls can find their way to heaven, wherever they, you know. So lanterns for the dead are what ring forts are called. It makes me wonder if that's some kind of beacon to where life is, as opposed to the others, which are death. So it's a beacon leading to places like you. I don't know if you said this earlier. I think you did, Steffie. Places of refuge, like
sanctuary
maybe
cities.
all of these ring forts. Yeah, that's really cool. I like that you said that because it led me there. And then Uther of the Hightower leads me to John, who is
Exactly.
who would be the person here on this path, is Uther of Pendragon in the Arthurian stories, is the father of King Arthur, who is what I see John as. Well, I see John as having to do with King Arthur, but I see Rhaegar having a lot to do with Uther Pendragon, who was the
Arthur's father.
dragon king of Arthurian. So it and the Hightower sort of ties to Lyanna, you know, in the Tower of Joy. So that's just a lot of cool literary parallels around there. But the lanterns of the dead, the testing. Think some more about that.
I'll jump in.
Well, the kings of Hightower. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so
go ahead, Steph.
I kind of went on a rant. You gave a lot. So, okay, you brought up Mecca and like how the touching of, like the touching of it made it dirty. I'm wondering if this could also apply to something like Dawn. If it was to be touched enough, would it? Because you're also talking about the dark star, right? And that is the title, or the evening star, which is the title giving to those who are from House Dane, which has somehow been tainted. It's their aspect. It involves like a villainy kind of thing, right? Like he got sent to the wall. So I'm wondering if the oily black stone is really an oily black stone, or was it touched so much, or was abused so much that it turned black? If you get what I'm saying. Okay.
Good point.
Could be.
So
good thought, Steffie.
The dragon.
Yeah, so the lighting the way on top of that, if there is gonna be a signal of either winter or of spring, you would also have to include the veil in that, and the eerie of Alyssa's tears finally reaching the ground. From, you're talking about the Aarons, right? They move down because it becomes so cold up there that you wonder if the de-thawing of this area would produce enough water to allow Alyssa's tears to reach the floor. And if from this summer, or from this de-thawing, if a werewood was there, it's just no one realized it because it was covered in ice or what have you.
Right.
As for Piermore's pet, someone in the comments said this earlier. I forget who. It might have been Ion, or it was someone. I do agree with you. I believe Piermore's pets were slaves. I don't believe he kept them to enlighten himself. I think he enslaved them, much like Euron is enslaving the drowned god and these different other gods within Aeron's vision. I believe that is the aim of it, because he is so tortured and demented that it exceeds him, much like that of Tyrion right now. Right, you're talking about the guy kills whores, and everyone ignores these aspects because he's so funny, but he's really a villain inside. He really wants to have that power. He really wants to have his home. He really wants to have that claim. So, and you're also looking at, if the Euron aspect is true, that gives more credentials to the pirate living at the Ravenry at the Citadel, and him raiding the Honeywine, and this becoming the same thing, just time gap. As for the lantern, if it does include the ring forts, I also have to think of White Harbor and the Seal Rock being ring fort. And then you also have to think that in the northwestern area, in the north as well, that's another ring fort up there. Like, it's on the edge of the Wolfswood. I forget which house. I think it's Hornwood who controls it. It's like Torrent Square, and then Hornwood's up here. So it's like the mountain clans and then Hornwood, right? So yeah, you gotta think of that. Like if you're gonna attach them now to Ringforth, where it's gonna go like all throughout Westeros, then definitely could create a beacon to that.
Yeah.
I would think that they could have.
And it would be,
you've got the Erie up on the top of a hill. I mean, all they got to do is light a fire up on top of the Erie, and that should be seen a ways too. So you're right. It could. Seems like a beacon line could be made. Go ahead, Ashley.
That's true. A fire. I love that. I just sort of wonder, you know, the Massies, they just keep coming back into my head with those spirals, and the fact that actually when I found that thing about the green and the Yggdrasil tree and how it meant the cosmos, you know, the cosmos, the Yggdrasil tree, the branches, all of it. It makes me think of something like in Ireland, all of the passage tombs, the way that they're laid out in the land, and you can only see it from the sky, is an exact, almost mirror image of the Milky Way. So they've got little cairns built along with stone rings. I'm sorry. Standing stones, that's what I'm looking for. And passage tombs. So each one represents the sun or a certain planet, and then constellations. So it's almost exactly the way the Milky Way is shaped right there. So it's like, you know, they do a lot of cosmology in these books. So, and they're constantly watching did in the Middle Ages, because that was how you could tell what day it was, what time it was, what season it was. But it's interesting to think about how these ring forts or beacon fires, lanterns, would be tied to certain times of the year, to constellations, to, you know, stuff like that. And I wonder if these three places might not form some kind of a magical sort of area like that, like a mirror of the cosmos, in a way. Get as above, so below, macrocosm, microcosm. You know, we are as gods.
I think it's balance. I think it's balance, Ashley.
Definitely.
I think that it's
oh yeah,
a balance of the old and the new, and who's to say that there isn't just one? And all these people, you know, everybody's assuming that it's this one, it's that one. What if all these gods are connected, and they're all an aspect of one? Not just the seven. I'm talking the old gods, the you know, all of them, the Ironborn,
all of them.
Yeah, and in their own way, every one of them, and a lot of it could go back to, like you said, the was it the Bloodstone Emperor? And you know, the emperor is said to have founded the Church of Sodari Wisdom and possibly caused the start of the Long Night. You know, it goes back to all that Bloodstone Emperor. All of these stones, all of these things are associated with that black stone. And like you said, it could be a conductor or it could be a blocker, either one. But the buildings of Ashai and the Shadowlands are consist of the same unpleasant, greasy feeling stone. And it's claimed the stone drinks light, which makes Ashai a dark and foreboding city. So, I mean, you always got,
Yeah,
and then
that's
you've
the
got the
important
mace
part.
makers. Yeah, and to me, it seems like
Yeah.
it's if you've got the Bloodstone King Emperor way over in a shy, and you've got the long night coming, like we said before, the long night had to have started from the top of the world, the north, and worked down across the whole globe. It didn't just come to Westeros; it came global on all sides, I would think. So all of this stone is
Yeah.
connecting all the way
Yeah.
to a shy. Even Yin, you know, they've got massive
Yeah.
blocks
Ashaya
there.
is all of us flex.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no
Yeah.
plants. It
Yeah.
creeps into
I mean, I think it
Yin.
might be.
Yeah, Yin's been empty for thousands of
Yep.
years. And then you've got
Mm-hmm.
the Isle of Toads, like you were saying a while ago. That's a greasy black stone. And it said they were reminiscent of fish and
Right.
have webbed appendages there. So, I mean, all of this goes back to Sea Stone Chair. You know, it was founded on Old Wick. It's also made of that. And then you get the first men, the drowned men claim Iron Men are not descended of first men, but instead came from the watery halls of the drowned god beneath the sea. Maesters reject the suggestion that the Ironborn are closer to fish or merlins. And there's your mermaid scenario right there, the drowned gods. And there's your lighthouse calling the drowned men in the new maybe in the new
Yeah.
long
The
night.
good things in the water.
Yeah,
Right.
that's all I
I
got for now.
I also was on the same track as Nana as
Right.
well, because you're talking about when we were doing the Stark Kings and the Red Kings and everything like that. The Red Kings and from the northern area of the Narrow Sea, there are tales told by like sailors and stuff like that, that the Milky Way is actually the Maesters believe it's a Milky Way, but the sailors say that it's there's dragons and there's gods and there's giants and there's this and that. Again, going into this theory that what Ashley said, so you got to look into that as well. So, and again, as for a shy, it also plays into the fact of this tainting of this fallen star, right? Like if let's say if oh, I forget who the guy is who does it, the Morning Star guy, oh, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name.
Oh.
Dane or the Gardner?
No.
Sword of the Morning.
Yeah, like
Arthur Dane.
he's the one that does theories with history of Westeros all the time.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And he believes like the moon, like he believes that theory of the moon. Oh fuck! I can't believe I'm
Lucifer
forgetting.
means light.
That's it. Okay, so he
Lucifer
believes,
means light bringers.
yeah. So he believes that the moon came and like basically that it was an egg and it's basically scattered the earth. But if you look at it as the star of like a meteor star, right? Instead of it being like an actual egg, then you could also tie it to this oily black stone where it's, and especially with the Iron Islands, because if you're talking about if lightning or extreme heat hits sand, it creates those glass figures that you see. It's in Sweet Home Alabama where it becomes like really clear. I am such a nerd right now. But so again, same
Lightning on the beach.
Yeah. So playing into this theory that if this star did fall, it could have created these greasy, oily black stones. But then also the people who are around them, you're talking about Shy, like we have Melisandre. Although I like Melisandre, I think she's a good character. You're talking Miri Mazdor, all these people of that have nefarious backgrounds in their magic are associated with that. So it doesn't give much credit or positivity to the land itself, right? And that's the same with the Ironborn and the Grey King, and how he sacrifices people, or he destroyed the old gods and all this stuff. So that might be also the tainting of that land as well. So just playing around in that whole circle.
True. Yeah,
Well,
that's
you
the
got
whole thing that throws the balance off, I think.
Well, and it's different from the black
Go ahead,
basalt. Is it different from the black basalt, or is it the same thing? Because you got Kaelin in the neck is composed of blocks of black basalt. So is it
Yeah.
the same thing? It appears to be the same thing as the black oily stone that Hightower set on. So this is being mentioned, like I said earlier, even in Kayaka Yaka Nana in Essos. And that's one of 3 fortress cities, and it's part of a patronymy. And of, excuse me, Harkoon, and was founded by the patriarchs of Harkoon. What I found about this was this is near the Bone Mountains, and it has walls of black basalt, black iron, and yellow bone. And the steel road is what it's called, that penetrates the Bone Mountains, leads to Base Dothrak and the Mother of Mountains, to this Kayaka place, which lies on the eastern side of Zaskwa. And this is fur-clad warriors ride the steel road, escorting caravans to and from that city. And there's the black stone again, black iron and yellow bone. And this city is known for having warrior maids who wear iron rings in their nipples and rubies in their cheeks. And it's similar to those of Bayashahad and Shamirina. And it's said that these cities are defended by women out of belief that only those who give birth are permitted to take life at will. Now, I thought that was very interesting.
Very. Yeah.
Translation,
Like
Arya's
Melisandre.
fault.
It just
Sorry.
Arya is
right.
Arya would fit right in with them, wouldn't she? Oh,
Please no, Arya, be careful.
but I
know,
found
it's
this
true.
interesting because the men are the rulers of the city, of these people. The men do all the ruling. The women are the warriors. And what it says in the meanwhile, 99 of every 100 boys, the sons of the great fathers, are gelded when they reach the age of manhood and live out their lives as eunuchs, serving their cities as scribes, priests, scholars, servants, cooks, farmers, and craftsmen. Only the most prominent males, the largest, strongest, and most comely, are permitted to mature, breed, and become great fathers in their turn. So I thought that was something there.
It is. It's interesting. You know, the other thing that ties into the black stones, it seems to me, are these twisted black babies we keep seeing, or we kept seeing from the Targaryens.
Oh, yeah.
It's said that all over the world, places they do horrible things like breed human women to half human creatures, and they get twisted half human babies with tails and stuff like that, scales and things. So it's a lot like Rhaenyra's baby, Daenerys's Rhaego. I feel like the black stone has something to do with that too, and it might just be because the dragons are comfortable in the black stone, around the black stone, that it seems like, you know, the only people who live in a shy, it's said in the world book, is that it's dragon lords, shape changers, God's wives like Mary Mazdur, Melisandre type red priestesses, and shadowbinders, and that they can actually survive and go past where the river Ash comes down and it's black water, and along the river Ash it's so it's so dark from the black stone drinking the light and being in the shadow of the mountains that there are said to be dragons in those caves. And so it makes me wonder if they have been messing around trying to breed dragons for so long. Magic comes from trying to figure out how to control it, that dragons are the ultimate weapon, but what happens to the places that the dragons are kept? It seems like something happens to them, or they were that way before, which makes it a better habitat for dragons, like the dragon pit. Like I forgot that House Hightower actually lived in the black stone before the house was built. They lived in the black fused stone. So that's even more like that they're the magical family who we don't see very often, who don't leave, who keep building it higher. It seems like they're chasing after whatever it is that they don't remember, that no one remembers. I think the Hightowers remember, and they know exactly what they're doing. They just can't release it to the world yet. It's almost like, this mystery knowledge that we do have in our world. It's the same kind of knowledge. It's the same thing. We've forgotten. They've forgotten. Kind of path, to destruction. If we don't remember and learn from our mistakes, we're bound to repeat them. So I don't know. The 5 forts were built to keep the Lion of Night and his demons out. So those are the black stone too. So I just don't know, though, if they're the same black stone, if it's the same black stone that is the obsidian, that is the basalt. I think it is. But then there are places of fused black stone that seem like almost like wyverns or dragons have gone through there and out or something.
If the black stone is dragon glass, is that what you're saying, that the black stone could possibly be made of dragon glass, and so are the candles? They're all made the same thing. I can see that.
Yeah, because I think that is because of the doom of Valeria and all the volcanoes and all the basalt, that would have ended up there, ended up under the sea. The whole thing about lava under the sea, when it hits the water, it goes into these bizarre formations, like almost like worm-looking type of, lava flow. Frozen in the water, not frozen, but hardens in the water, and like almost worms and stuff. So I don't know. It's like Atlantis or Lemuria, and who might be living under the sea, or who might have come out of the sea. Water Pike's letter, dead things in the water. Yes, they're there, and someone is going to come out of the water.
Okay, I got a question then.
Actually, just white.
If there's dead things in the water, and the old ones, the deep ones, are there, and they're actually living things there, is there a battle undersea as well as on land? When night comes.
Good question.
Good thought, huh?
A really good question.
Make you wonder. Makes you wonder.
Yeah, I would wonder if they're waiting the same way as everybody else is waiting. for the War of the Dawn.
Yeah.
You're gearing up, I
Yeah.
should say, not waiting.
Well, you're also talking about the squishers as well.
Yeah, this
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So
exactly.
like
Yes.
they used to like the folklore behind that is that they used to take children, especially women, or like the female children, and they used to take them off, right? Like carry them off, like kidnap them, right? And the theory is that they breed with them, right? Creating more and more and more. So yeah, I could definitely see that happening. But for me, I think that
Oldtown, yeah.
I feel like that's more going to become prevalent with the animals in the sea, like the creatures in there, like the kraken and the leviathan. I really want them to be there. Like I would rather see a kraken and leviathan being the result of them fighting a dead thing in the water than to have them do anything else. Like it would just be epic.
I would too. I agree. I agree.
Oh yeah, that would be so cool. I'm trying to find my black stone notes. I've had them for so long. There were a few more things about it that were so interesting, but you know, we could go on about this black stone forever, and it's kind of like the you know, the others or blood raven or something like that. It's either one or the other. It's either, well, I guess the black stone to me could also be both. It could serve both purposes. It could serve to block, and it could serve to relay information to a certain group of people, like the werewoods do. So I don't know. It's just it's one of those things that's kind of like it doesn't seem positive. It really doesn't. Except for Aegon is what makes me wonder about it being a positive thing. Aegon going to Dragonstone because it gave him peace of mind.
Or Summer, where the place burnt down.
Harrenhal?
No, the other one, where he was born at Summerhall.
Oh, Summerhall. Yeah, Summerhall. You know, when you guys
Summerhall,
the other towers, talking about where's the third place, I almost said Summerhall.
or the Tower of Joy. Don't know how long it's been there.
Yeah, Ned and Howland Reed took that down. Summerhall burned.
Yep.
So it could be.
Yep.
That would make it.
But you know, some people say it's believe it to be Valyrian in origin, but this Maester Quillen suggested made by the maze makers, and Maester Theron suggested it was by the Deep Ones, in similarity to the Sea Stone Chair. So I mean, and when you get to the maze makers, you know, these people, now listen to this, they constructed vast mazes consisting of blocks of carved stone, which have been found among the islands of Lorath, as well as one in mainland Essos, south of Lorath. Consists of an underground maze. The purpose of the maze is unknown, as the maze makers left no written record. Large bones, which have been found, indicate they were massively built and larger than men, which has led some to suggest the maze makers were born of the unions of half of human men and female giants. So there's your giant in connection in Essos, all the way over in Lorath. So you've got children of the forest and giants all over the world at some point.
I'm so glad you found that, because I was trying to think of where it came from, where I got that from, and that's it. That's great. I love that. I have a few things written down here from long ago about the Black Stone. One thing is that Archmaester Marwyn, I always forget, spent 7 years in a shy. and he knew that they just started arriving, that the others had just started to, or that the glass candles, I'm sorry, had just started burning. So that's why Ashai has been dark for so long, is what I was thinking, is that maybe the dark candles the glass candles are burning. Maybe that means that, like Melisandre says, there can't be darkness without light. There can't be light without darkness. So will Ashai, when things are dark, will Ashai be light? Or will these black stones maybe be light? So that people can see, or something can see.
When we're talking about these maze makers, before we go on, if you don't mind, there's another religion we've missed, and it's called the Pattern. The Pattern is a religion worshipped in Essos. The Pattern Makers maze is located in Bravos, and the priest of the Pattern claimed that only those who learn to walk the labyrinth properly will find wisdom. It is unknown if there are similar mazes in other cities or if there is a connection with the maze makers of Lorath. But you've got a different religion here that's come from the maze workers, the Pattern. And when I think of the Pattern, I don't know if you watched that movie Wanted, where they're a league of assassins that are run by a pattern. They weave the thread to make cloth patterns, and the patterns that come out says who it is that gets, and it's read by them. So I found this religion of the Pattern being very interesting in all this other aspects of having worshipped everything else in the world. Is this pattern like a spider's web? Does everything come together in a pattern of itself in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire? That was all.
I'll jump in. I'll jump in there quickly. You know how I always talk about the walkabouts of the Freemasons and stuff like that with these mazes, and how it's a spiritual journey? That's exactly pretty much explaining what you just explained, is pretty much the exact definition of that. So I think that might be what it is. And when we talk about, the Hightowers building higher, stonemasons, things like that, architects, like 7-year-old architects building things, this might be where it comes from. This kind of I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Somebody just walked in. Yeah, the walkabout is in Freemasonry, it's a spiritual journey, so that you actually, it's the ladder of the planets is what it is. So you're taking the same path as the sun around, as the planets around the sun, excuse me. And so that is sort of a earth, as above so below again. It's the earth maze of the planets circling the sun. And then at the end of it is a spiritual realization. It's a way to it's kind of a meditation. So that description that you just read just sounds exactly like that. And there's a lot of, even the spirals kind of dictate that where there is an actual formation that you walk around and reach a certain enlightenment stage.
And it also goes back to the spirals of the children of the forest. With that pattern, is that a part of the children of the forest thing as well? Because they dealt with patterns as well.
I think so. I think it all ties together. I really do. And that's why I brought up House Massey, because they have the spiral sigil. And I just think that, yeah, I think it does, because I think it all has to do with cosmic order and balance.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It
when
was
we go
also a
back to
way
the
that
deep ones, go ahead, hon.
sorry, just
Go ahead.
real quick, I'll just say, the Freemasons and the mystery schools did believe that when, sorry, I keep losing my train of thought, that when it was time to bring this knowledge out, that they would open the churches to everyone. And actually, right about now, I just read an article the other day about Freemasons opening up their churches to the public and letting people come in and do the walkabout. So that's really interesting. We got to a point where obviously they feel that we can be let in on some of this knowledge, that we're ready to receive it. Like we've evolved enough that we're ready to understand it.
Yeah. Also, I was want to go back to was the deep ones and the sea stone chair, and Maester Theron,
Yeah.
suggests that they're queer, misshapen race of half men sired by creatures of salt seas upon human women, according to Master Yendel. Theron suggests they inspired the legends of Merlins, and that the sea creatures who fathered them inspired the religion of the drowned god, and that the Lorathi maze makers, were destroyed by creatures from the sea, whereas the folk of the Thousand Islands sacrifice sailors to squamous fish-headed gods, of which stone idols emerge when the tide is low. This is possibly these stories and beliefs are related to Theron's deep ones. They're referenced in the Shadow over Innismouth, which is reference to an H.P. Lovecraft, is one of your favorites.
Yep. That's the Innsmouth, yeah. That's the one. Um it's really interesting how much he does reply, as he would say, to Lovecraft. It's interesting because the squishers, the deep ones, it's all Lovecraft, and the Cthulhu, all of it. I would love to see the Kraken, the Leviathan as a Cthulhu, like you said, stuff. It would be awesome. And actually, George wrote something. If you guys want to look for it, it's really cool. He just wrote a little thing about Jaime Lannister versus the Cthulhu and who would win. And it's a really great read. It's a lot of fun. So, he's messing around with Lovecraft. So I just kind of tie the oily black stone a little bit into the black trees. And I don't know if that's right or not. These ironwood trees, as I call them, I think we've just established that they're ironwood by now. Because that's what the House of Undying warlocks called it. Has something to do with it, because they're both dark. We play with dark and light so much. And in the Forsaken chapter, there's a lot of talk about the black trees. All I have here is just that it's believed it fell from the sky, that it tells it that these stones are meteorites, which dawn would be made from one of those meteorites. So is that the special power dawn carries, or is that a different sort of meteor? It's pale as milk glass. It's not black. So maybe if you break one of, I don't know, if there's an alloy in one of these meteorites that is pale as milk glass. The other thing is that he has H.P. Lovecraft. There's something to do with he tells stories about no, I'm sorry. There is a priest of the Church of Starry Wisdom, which is really interesting to me because the Church of Starry Wisdom has been around since I think the Great Empire of the Dawn. Yeah, because it was founded by the Bloodstone Emperor, I believe. And it seems to be another nod to Lovecraft and the Dark, which is the story of worshiping one of the outer gods who were aliens. And they would report back and forth to the aliens by these black stones. So the Bloodstone Emperor's behavior and his reign as blood betrayal, the kinslaying of the Amethyst Empress, his sister, which is believed to be the act that brought on the last long night. I think that because the mother and father of the Lion of Night, and the Maid of Light, who turned her back to the world and made it possible for the Lion of Night and his demons to come forth and punish the wickedness of man, is what the World of Ice and Fire says. So that kind of tells me that the black stone, which the Bloodstone Emperor worshipped with his followers, and he made them worship actually, and they got sick from, was the first others. It seems the first Lion of Night, to me, like I've said before, is just another word for Night's King. So I didn't really have much more than that about it, except for the fact that that I heard something. It was actually just kind of something off the top of my head. I was listening to Tyrion. I think it's when he's with Jorah sold off, and someone says lot 7, just like Melisandre hears in her head. Melanie, lot 7. So I just wondered if maybe it's not, I mean, it might still be a slave thing, be more like a training. Maybe they do this in the Blackstone. Maybe they do this in Oldtown. Lot that needs to learn something. It's just a strange idea that came into my head the other day.
That's sort of epic. I kind of want that now. I want like a league of like, you will learn from the oily black stone, kind of like Assassin's Creed. Yeah. I want that now really badly. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna jump a while back because I kind of let you guys go on a rant for a while. Okay, so I like the idea of the land or the oily black stone or the obsidian or whatever, when it's nightfall, being an actual beacon in itself. Because that matches my theory with Lightbringer and how ice is actually Lightbringer, right? Like, not the ice that Jamie and Brienne have. I'm talking about the original ice, which is obsidian or the oily black stone that House Stark wielded during the long night. That's my go-to. And I also have a feeling with the wall as well, and that kind of plays into it, because I don't see how you would be able to see your enemies if it's pitch black. I think that's a little crazy. So I feel like the base of the wall is actually obsidian blocks or basalts or the oily black stone in itself, and they've just built on ice on top of that. And have you ever seen, like, if you've been winter camping, never go, but if you build an ice ball around a fire, it's kind of like that, where it's gonna protrude into your environment a little bit. It's like a lantern, like a candle lantern, or like a Chinese lantern, right? Where you get the effects of that. As for The spiral. Okay, so the spiral for me, when you were bringing up, and also, I think, Crazy Zen 8, Carrie, I call her Carrie, or him Carrie. I don't know who you are. I'm sorry. Gender, please. I'll correct myself. And how the spirals actually in a lot of religions represent marriage, or the marriages, also leading back to Junjin and Mira, and how being one with the earth, and right, like the mountains and the rivers and whatever, right? So, but yeah, that's basically it. But I want Lot 7. Lot 7 sounds awesome. I want to be a part of Lot 7.
I know, it's just like, it's gotta be cooler than just like, it's gotta have something.
Now
really
I'm gonna
cool.
have to go look up Lot 7. I'm gonna do it. You know, you got me hooked on Lot 7 now.
I love it. Have we covered it, ladies?
I think so. Except for the current timeline, which we can do in another other things. We've covered the history of the Hightowers pretty much. The lords and all, we're not going to go into tonight. It's already late, I think. I don't know about you ladies, but it's 11 o'clock my time. So
Yeah, it's getting late. If you guys want to hear
so
about
it was
the Lord
Ashley,
Hightower,
Steffie, I'll let you guys say your goodbye. I'm Old Nan. You can find me here at Old Nan. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the chat. We love and appreciate you so much. You just don't know how much all of you have meant to all of us. We could not be here without your support, and you're thankful for that. So, ladies, I'll let you two say your good nights.
hi everybody, I'm Ashley from the Iron Underneath. It's always so good to be here with you guys. I just want to do some shout outs to people in the chat. There's so many great people in here. Don the Kraken, hey Don, Eli, you're the best. Let's see, we've got Lav, hi sweetheart, Amanda Demuth, let's see, Crowfoot's daughter, good to see you. We've got Biotic Flux, Ion Trone, Sword in the Darkness, Al Red Sox fan, good to see you. Great to see you all. I love having all of you here. It's so great. Joanna's here. I saw Moni G sneak in here at the last. Good to see you. And let's see. I think that's about it. Anybody, I'm really sorry, but Plexi's here too. Yay. Hi, Plexi. So it's so good to have all of you guys here always. And it's just so much fun to do this. I learn so much every time. I'm just really grateful. Oh, and we have Carrie Zen 8, who is a female. She answered. So now I'm glad we know that. Thanks. So anyway, thank you guys for being here so much. I haven't made very many new videos, but you can always find me at The Iron Underneath on YouTube. Thanks so much again. And I'll see you 2 Tuesdays from now when I get back from Amsterdam. So wish me a good trip.
Hey everybody, it's Steffie. Don't bother going on my channel. There's nothing on there. But I'm here all the time, every other week. So just pop by on Tuesdays and you'll see me. And Carrie, hi. And thanks, Kirk, too, for coming up. Yeah, I didn't even know you were listening till like right now. I wish you would have been a little more involved. I'd love to hear from you. So cheers, everybody.
Good night.